Hey there, I'm Sarah, and my biological mom kicked me out on the street when I was 5 because I was a troubled child. Little did she know I would grow up to be her boss. But first things first, shout out and credit to Powerpuff.Buttercup. Today's story is inspired by your title idea. Remember to post your new title ideas in the comments below. It needs to be an original story. Something we haven't done already. Give a like to the ones you would like to see animated. For the most active members who create very popular titles, we will contact you to join a secret server on Discord to offer you behind-the-scenes access. For now, let's jump straight into today's thrilling story. I don't really remember why it happened. It was so long ago, and I was so young. But what I was told by the people around Mom at the time was that she was always worried that I was too much for her. She thought I was too much trouble. And she was young, too, and was poor, so she didn't know what to do. I slept, and I would wake up every 2 hours. And every time I woke up, I wailed wildly and made a fuss. She was also worried that I still hadn't started talking at 5 years old. Obviously, she thought I was either dumb or mute, because all I ever made were unintelligible noises. And because I never really paid attention to her, whenever she'd try to talk to me, she'd think I was also deaf. I could understand that maybe I was just too much to handle, and she was too young to be a mother. But why would anyone just leave a 5-year-old kid in the streets? I was scared. Terrified, actually. Suddenly, I was thrown into a much wider world, and I didn't know where home was. Some people were concerned. Some people helped me and gave me food. Most people just tried to shoo me away and told me to get out of their way. Eventually, some policewoman saw me and took me to social services. I was put into foster home after foster home, but nobody ever wanted to adopt me because I behaved the way I did. Nobody understood why I never spoke. After so many doctors have examined me and identified that nothing was wrong with me, I wasn't deaf either, so they couldn't understand why I wouldn't show any signs that I'm hearing them. So, for years, I was passed on from family to family, and most of them just kept me so they could keep getting checks from the government. Until one day, one of my foster parents beat me up for ignoring her, and when she hurt me, I began wailing and crying, so she beat me even more. I had to go to the hospital for that. I was unconscious for 3 days, and when I woke up, my face was all swollen. That was when I saw the same policewoman who picked me up off the streets all those years ago. Paula ended up adopting me, and somehow, with her, I was a normal child. Little by little, I talked more, and then I actually became the top student in my class. With every year that passed as Paula's daughter, I became more and more of a normal kid. Except that, of course, we started finding out that I was remarkably intelligent. Paula was the best mother I could have asked for. She was kind, loving, and supportive of everything I wanted to do. When I wanted to learn how to play the piano, she sold some of her Cabbage Patch Kids collection to buy me a second-hand upright piano and a year's worth of lessons. I didn't understand how big of a sacrifice that was until I was much older. Mom was a big collector of toys, and for her to sell even one of them was a big, big sacrifice. She sold 8. So as soon as I finished high school, I got myself a part-time job. I promised myself I would never again need anything that would make Mom sell any of her stuff. I put myself through college. I worked in retail, and I would always twist my manager's arm to give me as many hours as I could handle. I worked so hard that I almost burnt out, but I kept Paula at the back of my head as my constant motivation. It was the least I could do for my mom, who worked tirelessly to provide for me ever since she adopted me. I fell in love for the first time in college. Steve was a breath of fresh air. I'd been focused on getting the best grades for so long and on making money that I forgot to have fun. I don't even know if I ever knew how to in the first place. But Steve taught me how. He took me to the beach and taught me how to swim. He introduced me to gaming, to hiking, to good books and amazing TV shows. Every spare moment I had, I loved spending it with Steve. And eventually, we moved in together. We got a dog together and named her Roxy. Steve gave me stability. While before I was focused solely on my goals and how I wanted to repay my mom, Steve made me want to reach my goals for my own future. And so I could live a comfy life with him. One day, I got promoted at my job. I was only a floor manager, but I was so happy. Steve gave me a diamond bracelet to celebrate, and I was over the moon. I wanted him to return it because it cost as much as a year's tuition, but he wouldn't do it. I told him the gesture was more than enough, but he wouldn't hear it. That was how I found out Steve was insanely rich. It turned out he was the heir of a massive restaurant franchise. I didn't even have any idea. He was so rich, I didn't understand what his life was. Like, once when our car broke down in the middle of the desert, he called someone, and 15 minutes later, a helicopter picked us up. And when I finally got to see his parents' house, I was floored by the sheer size of it. There was literally a lake in the middle of their property. I promised myself I wanted my mom to know that kind of life. I wanted her to be so comfortable she didn't have to worry about bills or whether her next paycheck was going to be on time. So I worked even harder. And then I went into business school. I became the regional manager for the store I was working for, and then I realized I was just making money for someone else. So then I cracked open my savings account and started my own store. Steve begged me to let him be my investor, but I refused. I told him I wanted to do it myself, to prove to myself and to my biological mom that she was wrong for throwing me out. I wanted to prove that I'm not just trouble, that I'm good enough. Yeah, I looked my biological mother up. I knew where she lived, and I knew what she looked like, but I never wanted to see her. I just wanted to know she was still out there. When I opened my second store, Steve proposed to me. I love you. And this second store is proof enough that you are an amazing woman. An amazing, stubborn woman who wants to do everything by herself. But not anymore, Sarah. I'm here. And should you be my wife, you'll be forced into doing things together. I said yes. Of course I said yes. Steve was my biggest supporter. Second only to my adoptive mom, of course. I was really lucky to have had them in my life, even though as a child I felt like some discarded piece of trash, always being thrown over to the next family who could tolerate me. So when I found my adoptive mom and my husband, it was like finding home. A real home where I don't get judged or thrown aside the moment I show some small complication. They both stood by me and showed me what real love looked like. And in return, I loved them back. And I worked hard. I worked until I could give my mom the life she deserved. I got awards. I got featured in business magazines. When I was a kid, all of my foster families didn't want me. Now, every mother I meet wishes I was their daughter. 4 years after marrying Steve, we opened our 20th store. I had 1,000 employees by then. To celebrate, I visited our latest branch to thank them and welcome them to the company. But as soon as I entered the store, time stopped. There she was. My biological mother was working as a cashier at one of my stores. I wanted to just walk past her, to ignore her, but I just couldn't. So I walked up to her till. "Hey, Martha." "Hi. Yes, it's me, the daughter you threw out at 5 years old. I just wanted to thank you. If you didn't leave me out in the streets, I wouldn't have made my dreams come true. So, thank you. Thank you for giving me the life I've had. 'Cause I got to meet the mother I deserved, and a kind, beautiful, amazing husband. I have a son now. I just thought you should know. And I want you to know that your grandson will definitely have a much better mother than his mom did. Goodbye. I never saw her again. I heard she begged to come into my house. But Steve drove her away to protect me. She was threatening to sue me for money. Now, I'm even more glad that she's no longer my mother.